Good evening from Washington, everybody. I'm David Schuster, in tonight for Keith Olbermann. Former Vice President Dick Cheney today criticized President Obama for his response to the Christmas Day bombing attempt, an act allegedly carried out by a radical Muslim who was twice allowed to fly into the United States by the Bush-Cheney administration, was flying into Detroit on a visa granted by the Bush-Cheney administration, was carrying a bomb obtained from al-Qaeda in a country neglected by the Bush-Cheney administration, was under orders from al-Qaeda leaders who were set free by the Bush-Cheney administration so they could become better people through art therapy and dialogue. Our number 5 story in the countdown: why President Obama's record on terrorism is 9/11 times better than Bush-Cheney's. But first, the investigation. Politico today reports President Obama has asked to have the results of a preliminary review by tomorrow, and that early findings confirm that if U.S. intelligence had connected the dots about Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib, he would have been screened more thoroughly before being allowed to board his flight to Detroit without checking any bags. His father informed the CIA in Nigeria on November the 17th that his son had disappeared, and he feared he had been radicalized. The CIA passed information to other agencies, but did not raise appropriate flags with the FBI, Politico reports. The fact that 2 leaders of the al-Qaeda offshoot taking credit for the bombing attempt were U.S. detainees at Guantanamo Bay has figured into the fusillade from the right, arguing that Abdul-Muttalib should go to Gitmo too.
I take a look at this individual who's been charged criminally. Does that mean he's going to get his Miranda warnings? Does that mean the only kind of information we're going to get from him is if he volunteers it? He's not a citizen of this country. He is a terrorist.
We should note that the Bush-Cheney administration sent shoe bomber Richard Reid to prison in Colorado. But in a statement last night, Cheney jumped on the bandwagon. President Obama seems to think if he has a low-key response to an attempt to blow up an airliner and kill hundreds of people, we won't be at war. He seems to think if he gives terrorists the rights of Americans, lets them lawyer up and reads them their Miranda rights, we won't be at war. He seems to think if he closes Guantanamo and releases the hardcore al-Qaeda-trained terrorists still there, we won't be at war. But we are at war, and when President Obama pretends we aren't, it makes us less safe. Let's bring in NBC terrorism analyst Evan Coleman. Good evening, Evan.
Good evening.
What do we know and still need to know about how this guy could get on a plane for Detroit?
Well, I think the answer is that we've had the wrong mentality. We have this fortress mentality where we're trying to stop terrorists at airports and airplanes when they're already at the target, but long after we should have stopped them initially. The way to stop these folks is through intelligence. And you know, the fact that we haven't processed intelligence in this case, that's not an isolated example. This is a phenomenon that's been happening for the last 9 years, ongoing. Richard Reid, you just mentioned Richard Reid. We had Guantanamo Bay detainees in our custody at the time of Richard Reid's attempted bombing of an American Airlines plane who knew him, who knew that he was an al-Qaeda operative, who knew that he was close friends with Zacarias Moussaoui, and yet that information was never fed to anyone. Nobody realized it until after Richard Reid had already tried to detonate his shoes on board that airliner. So the logic that we send people to Guantanamo Bay and that somehow solves the problem, look, that's entirely bankrupt. Not to mention the fact that the people that sent out Omar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib, the leaders of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, these were Guantanamo Bay detainees. They were released by the Bush administration against the advice of the U.S. military, who repeatedly said that these individuals posed an active threat to U.S. national security. For political reasons, within months of these people being judged unfit for release, they were sent back to Saudi Arabia. How can that happen? There was a serious breakdown here. It's not just a breakdown that's happened in the last year, it's a breakdown that's happened over the last 9 years.
Can you fact-check the criticism a little bit? Were the critics equally hard on Mr. Bush? And secondly, are they saying anything substantive that the White House has yet to acknowledge?
No, look, I look at what Peter King is saying, and I wonder how come he wasn't saying this 5 years ago when the Bush administration failed to take under its wing the intelligence reform that was promised to the American people. It was promised under the 9/11 Commission report. This reform never happened. If you talk to foreign intelligence agencies right now, if you talk to foreign law enforcement agencies, there are consistent complaints that the United States and its various different agencies are not sharing information in a timely manner. They are not sharing information with other. Even Scotland Yard in the United Kingdom is finding out about critical pieces of evidence in their terrorism cases based upon the fact that they come out in public indictments or they're leaked to news agencies. This is a problem that has been ongoing for 9 years, and it was a problem that was started under the Bush and Cheney administration. Even neocons acknowledge the fact that the release of the 11 individuals from Guantanamo Bay who have rejoined al-Qaeda was a horrifically naive decision.
If Mutallab's father had not come to the CIA, we'd focus a lot more on the bomb and the underpants. Didn't the Bush administration tell us they were effectively moving the border outward to airport checkpoints in foreign countries? I mean, is that not maybe more disturbing here, since that should have picked up the actual bomb rather than just raising flags?
We shouldn't be grabbing at people's crotches looking for bombs. That's not a way to stop terrorism, okay? We need to focus on intelligence. We need to identify these people long before they get to an airport. Because as you saw just a few years ago in the United Kingdom, it's not just a matter of people bombing airplanes. They can crash a vehicle through the front of Glasgow Airport, set themselves on fire, and start dancing around. And we knew about these people ahead of time. We knew about Omar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib. What's even more disturbing is the suggestion, and it hasn't been proven yet, that Abdul-Muttalib may have even been in contact with the same radical cleric who was in touch with Major Malik Hassan, the individual behind the Fort Hood massacre. These were communications that have gone on for at least a year and a half. They're not something that took place just during the Obama administration. The fact that nobody put these pieces together is criminal. Somebody's head needs to roll. Somebody needs to pay a price for this, and it's not just the Obama administration. It's not just President Obama. There are people within the Bush administration who failed to do their job, and somebody needs to be held to account.
NBC terrorism analyst Evan Coleman. Evan, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.